So about 2 weeks ago, I made my brother's wedding cake from scratch, and from start to finish, the process took about 4 days. So the wedding was on Saturday, and I started on Tuesday, but in reality, it kind of took a few months to prepare for, because I was really taking this wedding cake much more seriously than my own last October. Like, the second my brother asked me to make his wedding cake, I started making mood boards. Now, the thing is, my brother's one request for his wedding cake was for it to be a naked wedding cake. This is literally the inspiration picture that they sent at the beginning of March, which they basically clarified that they really loved the aesthetic of it, so more so the whimsical floral nature of the cake. So to really hone in on what they wanted, I sent back a few more inspiration pictures, and they landed on wanting a tiered naked cake that was ultra whimsical with lots of flowers. Now, the thing is, a 3-tiered wedding cake was most likely only going to serve around 60 to 70 people, so to accommodate the rest of the party, I initially figured I could make a supplemental sheet cake, but after some thought in a text saying that they trusted my vision, I thought it'd be fun to make 2 smaller tiered cakes, one being an ode to my brother Ian, and one being an ode to my sister-in-law Emma. Now, the priority on the first day of baking was truly just making the main wedding cake, which per request was the exact same cake I made for my wedding, an almond cake with a Grand Marnier Italian meringue buttercream and almond preserves. But the 2 supplemental cakes that would be an ode to Ian and Emma were totally inspired by their hometown and upbringing. So Ian's cake was inspired by our upbringing in the San Francisco Bay Area, and a treat he especially loved called It's It, which, for those who don't know, it's an ice cream sandwich with 2 old-fashioned oatmeal cinnamon cookies filled with ice cream and coated in dark chocolate. Now, because there was no way I was making an ice cream cake for their wedding, I made a vanilla pastry cream instead, which would be the filling for my oatmeal cinnamon cakes. And then for the frosting, because I was already making it, I'd make a chocolate Italian meringue buttercream to coat everything up. Now, for Emma's cake, the main priority was a pixie tangerine marmalade because she's from Ojai, California. And if you're unfamiliar with an Ojai pixie tangerine, I highly recommend trying one if you can. Now, because Emma's also lactose intolerant, her cake was made with a lactose-free milk, but honestly, with the amount of butter that went into the Italian meringue buttercream, it probably got offset, which was a factor she did approve, okay? Now, for Emma's cake, I really wanted to go with flavors that made me think of California. So for her Italian meringue buttercream, I wanted to flavor it with lemon verbena and honey, which for Emma having such an understated elegance about her, it really felt like the perfect flavor profile. Now, because a naked cake is inherently ultra whimsical, I really wanted the 2 supplemental cakes to fit the style. And with Ian being such a bold, passionate guy who is truly such a fun presence, I wanted to go for some piping accents that you see all over Pinterest that sort of give Dr. Seuss, because Ian and Emma both are really just not traditional people. Like, Emma literally requested not having anything that screamed patriarchy in their wedding ceremony, which honestly love that for them, hence the Crispedias/yellow pom-poms. But also, since it was their wedding, I was gonna add some gold. Now, Ian's cake was the only cake that I finished the morning of, and then I figured that I would assemble the rest of the cakes at the venue. Keep in mind, I was hanging on by a thread because I did have one too many drinks at the rehearsal dinner. I also don't think you understand that I was dressed in full glam with my bridesmaid dress, so an apron was essential. Shout out Headley and Bennett, but truly massive props to professional cake bakers because this is way harder than it looks. After adding the whimsical piping to Ian's cake, I really gave up on that idea for Emma's, so we kept it simple with just flowers, honeycomb, and lemon verbena. And then for their main wedding cake, I added a bunch of their wedding flowers as well as my grandparents' cake topper, which also happened to make an appearance on my wedding cake in October. Anyway, I really love how all the cakes turned out, but more importantly, they loved how they turned out, and that is all that matters.